Hey everyone, and welcome back. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I'm all about sharing stories that just feel right. And trust me, this one's a doozy. It's about a secretary, a lot of disrespect, and a whole lot of karma. And, yeah, I bought the company. So, rewind a few years. I was, and still am, a software developer. I'd poured everything into building a specific piece of code, let's call it Project Phoenix, that was going to revolutionize a niche market. This was my baby. I had an offer, a pretty sweet one, from a company called, let's just say they were called Apex Solutions. Apex Solutions was a bloated, old-school kind of place, but they had the resources to get Project Phoenix off the ground, and I was still young, ambitious, and naive. I walked into that interview feeling on top of the world. I'd spent months coding, refining, perfecting. The idea of bringing Project Phoenix into the world, it gave me chills. And I thought the interview went well. I talked with the CEO, the head of R&D, even the marketing director. They seemed impressed. They wanted me. And at the end of the day, I needed them. I remember the late nights, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the burning screen light. The endless debugging, the moments of pure frustration when the code just wouldn't cooperate. But through it all, the vision of Project Phoenix kept me going. I could see it, the way it would solve a real problem, the way it would streamline processes, the way it would change things. And the interview process, even with its stuffy formality, seemed like the culmination of all that hard work. The job offer came in the next week, and I accepted. Excited, I walked through the front doors of Apex Solutions, buzzing with anticipation. The building itself was underwhelming, to say the least. The lobby was dark, with dated furniture and a lingering smell of stale coffee and something vaguely industrial. But I pushed it aside. This was just a detail. What mattered was the potential, the opportunity to finally see Project Phoenix take flight. Now, Apex Solutions had a thing. They had this woman, let's call her Brenda, who was their secretary. And honestly, she acted like she owned the place. This woman was the gatekeeper. She controlled access, she controlled schedules, she controlled everything. And the moment I started, it was clear she didn't respect me. The first day, I was late. Not by much, maybe 5 minutes, stuck in some crazy traffic on the way. I walked in, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, eager to get started. I was still buzzing from the morning, the feeling of a fresh start, of finally being part of something bigger than just myself. I even took the time to pick up a pastry and a coffee for the day. I remember, they were the kind of treats that promised a good beginning. I'd been so focused on everything else that I hadn't really registered just how unwelcoming the building felt. I walked into the lobby, the warmth of the pastry in my hand, and smiled at Brenda. "Good morning," I said, my voice filled with the energy of the day. Brenda looked up from her desk, a desk piled high with overflowing in trays, a truly intimidating sight, by the way, and gave me a look. Like I'd personally inconvenienced her. Her makeup was immaculate, her hair perfectly coiffed. The air around her seemed to crackle with a kind of, disdain. "You're late," she said, her voice dripping with something that was definitely not honey. Her eyes, a sharp, calculating blue, narrowed slightly. "Sorry," I stammered, still grinning like an idiot. "Traffic was, terrible." I tried to give an apologetic shrug, offering a smile to maybe lighten the mood. I felt my face flush, the initial buoyancy of the morning instantly deflating. She just sighed, a theatrical, dramatic sigh. It was a performance, really. A slow, exaggerated release of breath that conveyed a level of exasperation I couldn't even comprehend. "We have a schedule, you know." And she pointed a perfectly manicured finger towards the door to the CEO's office, which seemed to be her domain. "He doesn't like tardiness." The way she said it, the emphasis on he, the subtle implication that I was the one causing trouble, it was a clear power play. I felt a flicker of annoyance, but I brushed it aside. First day jitters, I told myself. Maybe she was just stressed. I handed her the pastry, thinking, hey, a little gesture to start fresh. But her face didn't change, she simply took the pastry with a grunt. Right then, I should have clocked the level of passive aggression I was dealing with. But I was too focused on my new job, my new project. I let it slide. Big mistake. The slights continued. Every day, it was the same. She'd make snide comments about my appearance, my coffee habits, the way I organized my desk. I thought I had been organized, but apparently not. I started to become self-conscious out the way I came in. I started to feel a growing pressure to walk past her at the front desk, always anticipating her reaction. If I needed anything, access cards, IT support, even just a straight answer to a question, it felt like pulling teeth. There was always a delay, a dismissive comment, or a thinly veiled hint of annoyance. It felt like I was constantly being put down. It wasn't just me, either. I saw her do it to other new hires, to junior employees. She seemed to take pleasure in making people feel small. One young intern, fresh out of college, got chewed out for wearing the wrong shoes. Another, a bright-eyed programmer like myself, was berated for not being able to find a document that she'd conveniently misplaced. It became a pattern. Brenda created an environment of fear and intimidation, and everyone seemed to tiptoe around her, afraid of incurring her wrath. There was an undercurrent of tension in the office, a subtle sense of dread that seemed to emanate from her desk. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my work, to tell myself it didn't matter. But it was hard. The constant negativity started to wear me down, to chip away at my confidence. I began to dread going to work, the simple act of walking through the front doors filled with a sense of foreboding. One particularly brutal day, I was running late for a crucial meeting with the R&D team. Project Phoenix was at a critical juncture, and I needed to be there. I had a demo, a new feature that I had been working on tirelessly. I had to showcase the progress, the future. I raced to the office, frantic, because I had to present the latest update. I was already a few minutes behind, and I flew through the front door. I could practically feel the clock ticking, the minutes evaporating. Of course, Brenda was there, perched on her throne of paperwork. Her eyes, usually ice-cold, seemed to gleam with a certain delight. "Oh, late again, are we?" she said, her voice laced with a sweetness that reeked of poison. "The meeting started 5 minutes ago." She didn't even look up from whatever she was doing. Her fingers, still, and perfectly manicured, tapped rhythmically against the pristine surface of her desk. I know, I gasped, trying to catch my breath. My heart was hammering in my chest. "I'm so sorry. Could you call the meeting room and let them know I'm on my way?" She just shrugged, casually picking at a hangnail. It was a slow, deliberate movement, as if she were savoring the moment. "They're waiting." The emphasis on waiting was cutting, a clear indication of her contempt. It felt like she was deliberately delaying me, reveling in my stress. I was furious. I nearly lost it. I felt my face burning with shame and frustration. It wasn't just about being late, it was about the way she was doing it. The deliberate, casual cruelty. I remember thinking, why is this woman treating me like this? It felt like a vendetta, some deep-seated personal animosity. I had done nothing to warrant her treatment. It was as if I had become her personal target. I finally managed to make it to the meeting, thoroughly flustered and, frankly, humiliated. The project manager gave me a disapproving look. The R&D team gave me a few annoyed glances. It was just awful. I could feel my face burning, my palms sweating. The presentation was a disaster. My carefully prepared demo felt rushed, my ideas jumbled. That evening, I replayed the scene in my head. Her face, her words, the calculated way she had undermined me. I felt a deep, simmering anger, a feeling that I couldn't shake. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to make her understand the damage she was inflicting. Then came the email. The email that pushed me over the edge. It wasn't from my direct boss. It wasn't from the CEO. It was a mass email, sent to the entire company. Subject: unprofessional conduct. The email included a list of rules and regulations regarding punctuality and general decorum. It outlined dress codes, coffee break times, and even proper desk organization. It was a thinly veiled attack, a public shaming designed to humiliate. And attached to the email was an anonymous photo, a terrible photo, mind you, of me looking disheveled and stressed, taken as I rushed in late that morning. My hair was a mess, my tie askew. I looked exactly like the picture of someone running late and flustered. The picture made me look like an idiot. It was a perfect shot to emphasize my unprofessional behavior. I knew, with a sinking feeling, who had taken that photo, who had sent that email. I knew who was reveling in my embarrassment. That was the breaking point. That was the moment I snapped. I stared at the email, the words blurring before my eyes. I felt a cold wave of rage wash over me, a feeling that I had to do something, anything, to regain control. I'd been working on Project Phoenix for months. I'd poured my heart and soul into it. I had dreams of what the project could be. Oh, the future. I had ideas of how it could revolutionize the industry. But I wasn't going to let Brenda and her pettiness ruin everything I'd worked for. I printed the email, crumpling it in my hands. I could feel the paper tearing under my grip, my knuckles turning white. I threw it in the trash. I knew, in that moment, that I wouldn't let her win. I also knew, I had signed a non-compete clause and a contract. I couldn't just quit and take Project Phoenix elsewhere. I was essentially locked into Apex Solutions. But even with these obstacles, I was no longer the wide-eyed, hopeful developer. I was someone who had taken a serious hit. And I wanted payback. I spent the rest of the day, and many days after, doing my best work. I began to be even more meticulous, more focused. It was all I had left. I still worked on Project Phoenix, but my focus began to shift. I wanted to find some way to stop her. Now, I'd always considered myself to be a pretty good judge of character. I could see, almost immediately, the weaknesses in the system. I knew, as I always knew with Apex Solutions, that there was plenty of money in the bank. The company wasn't exactly flourishing, but it was stable. It had a solid revenue stream, some valuable assets, and a team of dedicated employees. And, as it turned out, the owners, an elderly couple who had little to no involvement with the daily operations of the company, were looking to retire. They were tired of running the business. They were ready to sell, to pass the torch to someone else. I realized that I wasn't just a software developer, I was a person who wanted to take charge. And that, my friends, is where my plan began. The first thing I did was the boring, but essential, stuff. I reached out to a few investors. I leveraged the contacts I had made over the months. I built a solid business plan. I had the numbers, the projections, the vision. I had the potential. I had to present the brilliance of Project Phoenix, and, more importantly, the potential of Apex Solutions. I presented them with a plan that would turn a stagnant company into a tech powerhouse. It took months of meetings, presentations, and sleepless nights. There were times I thought I wouldn't be able to pull it off. Doubt, fear, it all threatened to derail me. I had to push past all of that. But the investors, they believed in me. They saw the potential, the same potential that Brenda and the other management didn't seem to understand. I had to navigate a world of corporate jargon, of legal documents, of financial negotiations. I had to become fluent in the language of business, to learn how to read balance sheets, to understand the intricacies of venture capital. It was a crash course in everything I hadn't known before. I had to learn to project confidence, even when I was filled with self-doubt. I had to learn to sell myself, to convince others that I was the right person to lead Apex Solutions. I was, essentially, asking them to bet on me. I was asking them to believe that I could do something that I had never done before. I had to find allies, people who believed in me, people who would support me through the long, arduous process. I leaned heavily on a few trusted colleagues, people who had witnessed Brenda's behavior and shared my frustration. We commiserated, we strategized, we fueled each other's determination. There were setbacks, of course. There were times when the deal seemed to be falling apart. There were times when the investors hesitated, when they questioned my ability to pull it off. But I refused to give up. I pushed harder, I worked longer, I became even more determined. Finally, the day came. The deal was done. I, a lowly software developer, was now the majority shareholder of Apex Solutions. The look on Brenda's face the day the news broke, that was the first taste of sweet, sweet revenge. I savored the moment, that quiet thrill of victory. It was a moment I had played over and over in my mind, a vision that had sustained me through the long nights of planning and negotiation. The initial company-wide email came, and I'd been careful to ensure its delivery, on a Friday, near the end of the day, when people were already mentally checked out. The delivery time was no accident. It was another detail that added to the plan. It was brief, corporate speak, outlining the acquisition. It didn't mention me personally, just a general announcement of the new ownership. But the final sentence, the one I wrote myself, was the cherry on top. It mentioned the new CEO, and named me. I had a feeling she wouldn't read the whole thing. She probably would assume I was still around, doing my job. I waited until the weekend, letting it simmer. Letting the news sink in, hoping she would stew over it. I spent the weekend preparing. I practiced my speech, choosing my words carefully. I wanted this to be perfect. I bought a new suit, the kind that made me feel like a CEO. I felt myself become a different person, someone stronger, someone with power. I walked into the office the following Monday, wearing a suit that cost more than Brenda's annual salary. It was a custom-made, tailored masterpiece. The place, now my place, felt different. There was a buzz of anticipation, a nervous energy. Everyone knew things were about to change. I could feel the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of excitement, a feeling that I was finally in control. I made my way, calmly, purposefully, to the front desk. Brenda was there, of course, as smug as ever. She looked up at me, probably expecting the usual late arrival comments. Her smile faltered. I could see the confusion slowly creeping across her face. "Good morning, Brenda," I said, my voice calm, but with a hint of steel. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I was practically vibrating with anticipation. She stammered, Mr. Her eyes darted around, trying to place me. The realization was just beginning to dawn on her. "That's right," I said, letting the smile creep across my face. It was a slow, deliberate reveal, the kind of moment they write about in movies. "Have a seat. I need to speak with you." I gestured towards one of the chairs in the waiting area, a gesture that conveyed both authority and a certain, unspoken pleasure. I watched her, her face slowly transforming from a mask of composure to a mask of utter shock. I could see the color drain from her face, the subtle tremors in her hands. Now, I'm not going to lie. The next few minutes, they were cathartic. I had HR present, of course. The conversation was short, and to the point. I had consulted with lawyers, ensuring that everything was handled legally, professionally. She was let go. I can't go into specific details. But let's just say, everything was on the up and up. And I made sure she was well compensated, so there would be no legal issues. I wanted to win with class. But the satisfaction of finally being the one in control, the one making the decisions, it was glorious. The shock on her face was exquisite. The disbelief, the utter devastation, it was everything I had hoped for. I wanted to taste the moment. I wanted to take it all in. I wanted to linger on the moment, but I couldn't, I wouldn't. As she gathered her things, I spoke. "I'm sure you're wondering why, Brenda. You've probably been treating people like this for a long time. Well, this is karma." I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I just said it calmly, with a level gaze. And it was the truth. I let her take the moment. I wanted her to understand. I let her leave without saying anything else. I wasn't going to give her the pleasure of a reaction. I just let her walk out of the office. I turned to HR and went back to my new office. I felt a tremendous amount of relief, and the weight that had been on my shoulders for months was now gone. After she left, I spent the rest of the day making changes. I had a team of people ready to go. I restructured departments, implemented new policies, and began the process of modernizing the entire company. I got rid of the old furniture and replaced it with new stuff. I wanted everything to be different. It was a long day, but also a good one. It felt like a fresh start. I also made it very clear to everyone that this was a new beginning, a fresh start, and that I valued respect and collaboration above all else. I laid out my vision for the future, the changes I wanted to implement, the values I wanted to instill. I wanted Apex Solutions to become a place where people felt valued, where their contributions were recognized, where they could thrive. The company is now thriving. Project Phoenix is live, it's successful, and it's making a real impact. We are making money. We are innovating. We are growing. Apex Solutions is no longer a bloated, old-school company. It's a vibrant, innovative, and forward-thinking place to work. And, most importantly, it's a place where everyone is treated with respect. I hear people laughing in the hallways, and there is a feeling of collaboration. I love it. And Brenda? Well, I heard she's working as it doesn't really matter, but her new job, it's, let's just say, not quite the corner office she was used to. So, yeah, that's my story. A story of humiliation, of betrayal, and ultimately, of sweet, sweet revenge. It's a reminder that even when you're down, even when you feel powerless, you can find a way to rise above. Sometimes, all it takes is a little bit of planning, a lot of determination, and the courage to fight back. What do you think? Have you ever experienced anything similar? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more revenge stories. Let me know your own stories and your own thoughts. And until next time, stay awesome. And remember, karma's a, well, you know.